see, I've been quite busy 3D printing things for my music equipment, such as these clamps, feet for the casters that are going to be going on the bottom of the legs of the drum kit so that I can roll it about without having to load it onto a garage creeper. This is the second version of it. So you can see it's slightly roughed up there where the support was underneath that I had to manually design. The first version is the one that I put on here, and you can see it's a lot smoother across here. It was printed vertically, so it meant that all of the support structures were through the gaps where the caster plate was going to go, and all under here. So you can see this is perfectly smooth. But that meant that it was about 2.5 hours worth of chipping away at very tightly spaced support material, but the inside sleeve was very smooth, so it meant that the fit is pretty good. With even a slight bit of force, that's difficult to turn. So fairly successful, but a lot of aftercare. So then I went back and manually designed some new support material so that I could print it this way, as you can see. And it's just two pieces there, which snap off really easily. This is a sort of waffle grid type design that just sits underneath this barrel. It comes off pretty easy, but it's not as easy as these two. These inner two support structures are just so that the inner sleeve can be printed without printing over nothing and causing the filament to sag. But you can see the gaps where the caster plate goes are completely empty, so it means that fitting the casters is a lot easier, and this comes off relatively easily. And just like that. Now it's time to snap these bits off. And there we go. So that supports under here, but it does leave it a little bit rough. So I just need to get a blade and cut that last bit open, and that's it. It's ready to go. And snap these inner bits out. So as you can see, the inside leaves these little dots, which are how the inner support mounts. So rather than this being added to part of the structure, this very slightly spaced apart to make it easy to break away, and then I can just file these down. So that's the downside of printing it this way as opposed to vertically, where it can just slip straight onto the drum tube. And I'm not too bothered about this because it's a functional piece. It's not designed to look pretty, but I can always come back and deal with this later if it does bother me. So as you can see on the bottom, I've also recessed around the bolt holes, because the bolts that came with the casters are measured up and they're quite a large head to them, but I wanted to recess the bolts into this to make sure that the caster had plenty of room to rotate. And as you can see, I've also beveled these edges, just put a chamfer on them so that the locking kick plate has just enough room to move through there, and then obviously it's got plenty of space at the sides. On the corners, however, that's not going to work, but it's most likely going to be locked in that position anyway. There we go, done. So I've also printed 5 are these loom clamps. So these parts are for the cable snake, some people call it, which is as all of the pad connections come together in the one loom closer to the serial port at the module end. And these are for the individual cables closer to the pads, where you might only have a couple, and it should make it all a lot neater and tidier. And lastly, I've got a headphone clamp. So all of these were found on Thingiverse, and I use this as a template to completely redesign to make the casters. So even though this part looks quite similar, I just had to take all the measurements and redesign it from scratch. Lastly, we've got the mounting plate and associated hardware printed for the new sample pad. So this came out really well. It was a fairly long print at about 5 hours, but the dovetail on there is really crisp. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's the settings or something like that, but this doesn't quite fit in there just yet. The profile is a little bit too big on this side, so I'm going to try and file that down just to make it fit. It printed really nicely, but unfortunately it just doesn't quite fit in properly. So that could be a number of reasons. Most likely it'll be the printer settings or some variation between the settings of this one and this. So the idea was to print this myself rather than spending the 30 to 50, maybe even £60 on a new pad clamp, multi-clamp or arm, so that I can recycle an old cymbal arm by putting these two together and mounting that onto the arm, and then the dovetail will fit right in there, and that should hold it. And this is where the magic happens. For anyone interested, I'm using eSun PLA Plus black filament. It's 1.75mm, and this is not the original bed. As you see, I did use that and it got pretty messed up pretty quickly. It's actually peeling there from having to scrape prints off because they wouldn't come loose. But I did have this old splashback lying around, so I cut some of it down to size and it sits on there perfectly. So I'd have to print at 75 degrees bed temp, but it does mean that it adheres to the bed, and then once it cools a few degrees the pieces just pop off with no resistance, and the bottom of them is like glass, which is quite a nice finish. Well, because of lockdown I've had to bring the drum kit home from the studio and managed to squeeze it in this space, and as you can see from all of these parts I've been swapping out some of the clamps. Also I was going to be placing the new sample pad on this arm that I've put in, or somewhere around here, but unfortunately I've broken it already. So the screws that go in there, which are rather long, unfortunately they are so long, even with the pad mount that I've printed, go straight in and have damaged the circuit boards. So that's now dead, which is annoying because it's a complete waste after I've just fixed it and I haven't even made a chance to use it yet. So here's some of the clamps, show you how they go on, where I've used them. So you can just see around the back there, got one of the smaller ones. So you can see it just clips on, and that's it. I'll keep it tidy. And for the larger ones, as you can see around the back of the module, this is the loom and cable snake. You can see how that goes on there, so that gives just enough room for all the wires to go through. It clamps on. Same thing there. So let's say down here example, there's all these loose wires. Just bunch all those together, just like so. There you go. Other things that have been printed is this lot. So for my airsoft rifle, I've got a magwell stand to keep it up, a foregrip with adjustable rest, although the tolerances aren't all that clear on that, so this is about as far as I can screw it in at the moment, so it's always going to be that tall. But you see that slides onto there. I just need to get some hardware to screw it on. I've got a sight or attachment riser and some flash hiders. One's counterclockwise and one's clockwise thread, but the threads need cleaning up before I could put them on because they are basically smooth, covered in paint. So I'm going to clean those up and I'll be able to put those on. The next thing is the first product, wall mountable steering wheel boss hub, standard wall fitment. Put your wall screws in, place that on, slot it down till it locks in, and then with your quick release wheel, there you go. So there's more parts that I'm going to be 3D printing going forward. You can see I started working on some designs for coasters for racetracks, embossing them. I tried painting this one but it came out terribly, so I'm not going to be doing that going forward. I do have another version with a white background and black on top, so that's where the colour comes from, and it looks a lot better, but I still need to test to see how well it holds up to heat and moisture, because this is PLA, so it might curl, although I've been using this one for quite a while now and it's still straight as anything. I'm also working on a tablet install for Juno, so this is going to sit above the center console. You can see I'm trying to use a little hole there so I can still press the lock button, and I'm already working on a case which is pretty much modelled at the moment, but I need to cut all of this excess out and then I'm going to be mounting it in there, and this is all going to get wrapped up anyway at the end, so I don't have to worry about colour matching or anything. It's all going to get the parts filled in, putting it on top of the centre console, and then it's all going to get wrapped in paper anyway. Finally, I've been working on a cup holder design for the MX-5, and this will sit at the in between the seats, so it should be completely out of the way when driving. It won't intrude on use of the gear stick or anything, and you won't have to lose the ashtray, or in my case phone holder compartment in the middle. So only on the first prototype stage of that, but the design's already been refined, so I'm going to be printing the first version of the final design soon, so I'll make another video when that's done. Thanks for watching, see you in a bit.